Winter on the Great Plains in the 1700s was unforgiving. For many European settlers, it meant hunger, desperation, and death. Journals from the time described families surviving on rotten grain, boiled leather, and whatever could be scavenged from the frozen land. Yet just beyond these struggling settlements, indigenous communities faced the same brutal winters and almost never starved. They didn't rely on luck. They relied on a system, a survival network so refined that entire nations could eat for months, sometimes years, from a single hunting season. And it was built without fences, firearms, or written plans. So how did they do it? Explorers and fur traders repeatedly recorded the same strange contradiction. Colonial forts reported hunger. Nearby native villages reported abundance. Accounts from the Missouri Valley describe storehouses filled with dried bison meat and fat. Travelers wrote of dense food reserves that carried families through entire winters. One explorer noted that while his party rationed crumbs, nearby villages distributed preserved meat freely among their people. This wasn't because the land favored one group over another. It was because indigenous hunters understood something settlers did not. Survival on the plains was not about individual effort. It was about coordination, planning, and shared responsibility. Across the northern plains, archaeology reveals the scale of these systems. One site in southern Alberta tells the story better than almost anywhere else. A massive cliff used repeatedly for thousands of years as a hunting tool. At its base lies a bone bed over 12 meters deep, built layer by layer through generations of communal hunts. Each layer represents a single event, hundreds of bison driven with precision, tons of meat secured in hours. These were not chaotic stampedes. They were carefully planned operations that turned geography itself into a weapon. Indigenous hunters did not chase animals blindly across open ground. They shaped the landscape long before the hunt ever began. Controlled fires were used to renew grasslands. Burned areas produced fresh, nutrient-rich growth that bison instinctively sought out. Over time, herds began moving along predictable paths, returning again and again to these managed corridors. Hunters memorized every ridge, ravine, and river bend. Snowdrifts in winter and narrow valleys in summer became natural funnels. Stone markers, placed generations earlier, guided both people and animals along invisible routes. The land itself became part of the hunting system. When the moment finally came, everything moved with quiet discipline. Hunters took their positions hours before sunrise. Runners crept low through grass. Others disguised themselves in animal skins, gently steering the herd without causing alarm. There was no reckless chase. Panic scattered animals and wasted energy. Instead, pressure built slowly, movement stayed controlled. The herd followed its own instincts straight into the trap. At the final signal, the silence broke. The animals surged forward, toward cliffs, ravines, or deep snow, where escape was impossible. Within moments, hundreds of bison lay still. But the hunt was only the beginning. A single adult bison could provide hundreds of pounds of usable food. After a large communal hunt, the challenge was speed, not scarcity. Every person had a role. Meat was sliced into thin strips and dried in wind and smoke. Fat was rendered, the most valuable resource of all, holding more than twice the energy of lean meat. Mixed with dried meat and berries, it became pemmican, compact, powerful food that could last for years if kept dry. Unlike European preserved foods, pemmican did not spoil easily. A small portion could sustain a person for days. Nothing was wasted. Bones became tools. Sinew became cord. Hides became clothing and shelter. Up to 90% of the animal was used. The most important rule came after the processing was done. Food was not hoarded. Elders, children, the injured, and widows were fed first. Strong hunters ate last. This was not charity, it was strategy. By spreading food across the entire community, risk disappeared. One failed hunt, one injury, or one harsh season could not destroy a family. Anthropologists later found that starvation deaths were far lower in these communal societies than in nearby colonial settlements, where survival depended on individual stores. Knowledge was shared the same way. Every child learned the skills. No single person held all the expertise. Redundancy was survival. In the late 1800s, this balance was deliberately dismantled. Controlled burns were banned. Communal hunts were restricted. Bison populations collapsed. Without fire, grasslands changed. Herds became unpredictable. The old hunting corridors disappeared. Food insecurity followed. A system that had sustained people for thousands of years unraveled in just decades. Today, indigenous communities are restoring these traditions. Controlled burns are returning. Bison are being reintroduced. Communal food systems are being rebuilt. These efforts are not about the past. They are about resilience. In a world where millions still face hunger despite modern technology, these ancient systems offer a powerful lesson. Survival is not just about resources. It is about cooperation, knowledge, and respect for the land. The question is no longer whether these systems worked. The question is whether we will listen before necessity forces us to relearn them.